morning sun shone through the tall windows of Pacific University's biology building. Professor Jake Martinez walked down the hallway carrying a box of specimens. Today was different from any other day in his 20 years of teaching. Today, he would meet the first alien students ever to visit Earth. Jake stopped at his office door and took a deep breath. 5 students from the Zephyrian Empire had traveled across space to study Earth's creatures. The whole university was excited about this historic moment. Jake felt nervous and honored at the same time. Amy Collins was already waiting in the lab when Jake arrived. She was his best graduate student, smart and careful with her work. Amy had volunteered to help with the alien exchange program. She looked up from organizing the microscopes and smiled. "Are you ready for this, Professor?" Amy asked. She pushed her blonde hair behind her ear, a habit she had when she felt nervous. "As ready as anyone can be for meeting aliens," Jake replied, with a laugh. He set down his box and looked around the lab. Everything was clean and organized. Glass containers held various spiders and insects. Charts showing different species covered the walls. The door opened and 5 tall figures walked in. Jake had seen pictures of Zephyrians before, but seeing them in person was amazing. They looked like walking suits of armor made from some kind of natural shell. Their faces had large eyes and no visible nose. When they spoke, their voices sounded like wind through metal. The largest alien stepped forward. His armor was dark blue with silver edges. Scars marked his chestplate like medals of honor. "I am Cathvar of the 3rd War Clan," he said in perfect English. His voice was deep and strong. "We have come to study your primitive life forms." Jake felt a flash of anger at the word primitive, but kept his face calm. These aliens had traveled far to be here. He needed to be polite. "Welcome to Earth," Jake said. "I am Professor Martinez, and this is Amy Collins. She will help guide your studies here." The other aliens introduced themselves. Lilithon had crystal-like features that caught the light. Mordek wore robes over his armor and spoke carefully. Zaranel seemed younger and more excited than the others. Phexion stood back with his arms crossed, looking like he did not want to be there. "Your report said Earth has millions of species," Lilithon said. Her voice was softer than Kethvar's. "This seems impossible for such a small planet." Amy stepped forward. "Earth has had billions of years for life to develop. Competition made our creatures very diverse." "Competition?" Zaranel asked. "What kind of competition?" "Survival," Amy said simply. "Everything here evolved to either hunt or avoid being hunted. It made our animals very good at what they do." Kethvar made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your creatures are tiny. I have seen the files. Most are smaller than my smallest finger. How can such weak things survive?" Jake walked to one of the glass containers. Inside was a spider no bigger than a pinhead. It was almost too small to see without a magnifying glass. "This is a patudigua," Jake said, "one of Earth's smallest spiders. It is less than half a millimeter long." The aliens gathered around to look. Vexion used some kind of device to scan the container. "Pathetic," Kethvar said. "On my world, we step on things larger than this without noticing. But this little spider is a perfect hunter," Amy said. "It can catch prey much larger than itself. Its venom can stop a fly instantly." "Venom?" Mordek asked. "This tiny thing makes poison?" "Most spiders do," Jake explained. "They inject chemicals that paralyze or kill their prey. It is very efficient." Lilithon looked interested. "What kind of chemicals?" Amy pulled out a chart showing spider venom components. "Neurotoxins mostly. They attack the nervous system. Some also have enzymes that break down tissue." Kethvar laughed again, louder this time. "You expect us to fear something we cannot even see properly? I have been shot by plasma cannons and walked away. My armor has turned away metal blades. This insect could not harm the weakest child of my people." "It is not an insect," Amy said quietly. "It is an arachnid, and size does not always matter in nature." "Size matters in war," Kethvar replied. "Size matters in survival. Your planet makes weak creatures because it is a weak world." Jake felt his anger rising again. Earth was not weak. Earth was one of the most dangerous planets in the known galaxy. The aliens just did not understand. Yet, perhaps we should start with larger specimens, Mordek suggested. He seemed to notice the tension in the room. Amy nodded and moved to another container. This one held a tarantula, big and hairy. The aliens looked more impressed. Now this looks like a proper predator, Zaranel said. Actually, tarantulas are quite gentle, Amy explained. Their bite is no worse than a bee sting for humans. It is the small spiders you have to watch out for. Impossible, Vexion said. Larger always means more dangerous. This is basic logic. Jake and Amy exchanged a look. These aliens had much to learn about Earth. They thought they understood how life worked, but Earth followed different rules. Here, the most dangerous things often came in small packages. We will start your studies with basic observation, Jake said. Tomorrow we will go into the field to collect specimens. You will see how our creatures live in their natural environment. Kethavar nodded. Good. I want to see these supposedly dangerous tiny creatures for myself. Perhaps I will let one bite me to prove how harmless they are. Amy opened her mouth to protest, but Jake touched her arm. Let the aliens learn for themselves. Sometimes experience was the only teacher that worked. As the aliens filed out of the lab, talking among themselves in their own language, Amy turned to Jake. They have no idea what they are dealing with, do they? Jake shook his head. None at all. They think size equals danger. They are about to learn that Earth does not work that way. Should we warn them more strongly? We tried. They will not. Listen until they see proof. Jake looked at the tiny spider in its container. And I think they are about to get all the proof they can handle. 2 weeks had passed since the alien students arrived at Pacific University. Every day they seemed more convinced that Earth's creatures were harmless toys. Amy Collins felt frustrated as she watched them laugh at her careful explanations about predator and prey relationships. The morning air was cool and fresh as Amy led the group into Cascade Forest Preserve. Ryan Park, another graduate student, had spent the previous day setting up collection traps throughout the woods. He met them at the trail entrance with a big smile on his face. Perfect weather for collecting, Ryan said. He carried a bag full of specimen containers and magnifying equipment. The spiders should be very active today. Kethvar looked around at the tall trees and thick bushes. Your forests are so quiet, he said. On my world, you can hear the great beasts fighting from miles away. Earth's predators often hunt in silence, Amy explained. They use surprise instead of strength. More proof of weakness, Vexion said. He scanned a nearby tree with his handheld device. If they were truly dangerous, they would not need to hide. Amy bit her tongue. She had tried explaining camouflage and ambush hunting many times. The aliens refused to understand that hiding was a sign of intelligence, not weakness. Ryan led them deeper into the forest. He stopped at his first collection station, a small trap set between 2 fallen logs. Inside, several tiny spiders had been caught during the night. Excellent, Ryan said. We have some jumping spiders, a few orb weavers, and... He looked closer with his magnifying glass. Perfect. A patudigua. Lilithon peered into the container. The same species from the laboratory? Yes, Amy said. They live everywhere. You can find them in almost any environment on Earth. Because nothing else wants to eat something so small and worthless, Kethavar said with his metallic laugh. Amy felt her patience running out. Actually, many birds and larger spiders do eat them, but they are excellent at hiding and escaping. Zaranel seemed genuinely curious. How do they escape from larger predators? Speed mostly, Ryan answered, and their webs are incredibly strong for their size. Plus, their venom makes most predators sick if they do get eaten. Venom again, Mordek said thoughtfully. You mention this often, Amy nodded. Almost every successful predator on Earth uses some kind of chemical weapon. Venom, poison, acid, paralytic compounds. It is very common here. Show us, Kethvar demanded. I want to see this amazing Earth venom in action. Ryan looked uncertain. We usually observe feeding in controlled laboratory conditions. No, Kethvar interrupted. I want a real demonstration. Let one of these tiny killers attack me. Amy stepped back. That is not a good idea. We do not have medical clearance. For interspecies contact, medical clearance? Kethvar laughed so hard his armor plates rattled. I have survived plasma burns that would melt your strongest metals. I have fought creatures with claws longer than your arm. You think this invisible spider concerns me? He began removing pieces of his chest armor. Underneath was a tough, chitinous hide that looked like natural armor. It was dark gray with a slight shine, like polished stone. Kethvar, please, Mordek said in their own language. The words sounded like wind chimes in a storm. No, Kethvar replied in English. These humans need to understand. Their world is not dangerous. Their creatures are not threats. I will prove it. Amy looked at Ryan, who looked back at her with worried eyes. Professor Martinez had warned them that the aliens might be overconfident, but this was dangerous. The university insurance does not cover, Amy started to say. I take full responsibility, Kethvar declared. My people have faced the worst the galaxy can offer. Nothing on this soft world can harm us. The other aliens gathered around to watch. Lilithan activated some kind of recording device. Vexion seemed annoyed, but curious. Zaranel looked excited like she was about to witness an important scientific experiment. Amy carefully removed the tiny Patu Digua from the collection container using soft forceps. The spider was so small, it looked like a speck of dust. She could barely see its legs moving. Are you sure about this? She asked one more time. Kethvar exposed a small patch of his natural hide on his forearm. The skin looked thick and tough, with a texture like elephant hide but harder. Do it, he said, confidently. Show me the power of Earth's mighty warriors. Amy took a deep breath. She gently placed the spider on Kethvar's exposed skin. For a moment, nothing happened. The tiny creature sat perfectly still, probably confused by the alien environment. Then it moved. Amy saw the microscopic fangs pierce the alien's hide. The bite was so small that a human might not even feel it. But Kethvar's reaction was immediate and terrifying. His large eyes went wide with shock. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. His whole body began to shake violently. Kethvar, Zaranel called out in alarm. The massive alien warrior fell to his knees. His shaking got worse. He tried to speak, but only made choking sounds. His arms wrapped around his chest as if he could not breathe. What is happening? Lilithan demanded, her crystal features flashing with panic. Amy stared in, horror as Kethvar collapsed completely. His body convulsed on the forest floor. The tiny spider, apparently unharmed by the experience, crawled away into the leaves. Call for help, Amy shouted to Ryan. Call 911 now. Ryan was already pulling out his phone, his hands shaking as he dialed. Mordek knelt beside his fallen friend, speaking rapidly in their language. Vexion scanned Kethvar with his device, the readings making alarming sounds. His neural activity is chaotic, Vexion reported. Something is attacking his nervous system. Amy felt sick. The tiniest spider in the world had just brought down the mightiest warrior of an alien empire. She had tried to warn them, but they would not listen. Kethvar's convulsions were getting weaker. His breathing became shallow and irregular. The color of his hide was changing from gray to a sickly blue-green. The ambulance is coming, Ryan said. 10 minutes. He may not have 10 minutes, Lilithan said, her voice full of fear. Amy knelt beside the dying alien. She had studied spider venom for years, but only as it affected Earth creatures. She had no idea what it might do to alien biology. Looking at Kethvar's failing body, she realized they were about to find out. And the answer might change everything the galaxy thought they knew about Earth. The ambulance siren screamed through the quiet forest as paramedics rushed to load Kethvar onto a stretcher. The massive alien's body barely fit, and his convulsions had grown weaker but more frightening. Amy Collins sat in the back of the ambulance holding a small container with the spider that had caused all this trouble. Dr. Lisa Thompson was waiting at Pacific University Medical Center when they arrived. She was the head of emergency medicine and had volunteered to treat any medical issues with the alien students. But she had expected minor cuts or allergic reactions, not a dying warrior. "What happened?" Dr. Thompson asked as they wheeled Kethvar into the trauma room. "Spider bite," Amy said quickly. "Patudigua, less than 1/2 millimeter long." Dr. Thompson stared at her. "You are telling me that tiny spider did this?" "Yes," Amy replied. "He insisted on the demonstration. We tried to stop him. The aliens' vital signs were failing fast. His breathing was shallow and his heart rate was irregular. Strange blue patterns spread across his gray skin like poison flowing through his veins. I need to understand his biology," Dr. Thompson said. "Can his people help us?" Mordek stepped forward. He had been silent during the ambulance ride, speaking rapidly into a communication device. "Our medical teams are preparing information, but they are many light years away." "We do not have that kind of time," Dr. Thompson said. In the corner, Lilathon was taking readings with alien medical equipment. "His neural pathways are shutting down," she reported. "The venom is attacking his central nervous system." Dr. Thompson called for Kate Sullivan, a veterinarian who worked with exotic animal venoms. Kate arrived within minutes carrying a bag full of anti-venom samples and reference books. "Show me everything you know about this spider," Kate said to Amy. Amy pulled out her research files on her tablet. "Patudigua venom contains neurotoxins that target calcium channels in nerve cells. For humans, the dose is too small to be dangerous. But for some reason, it is devastating to Zephyrian biology." Professor Martinez arrived with Nick Rodriguez, his research assistant. They had driven as fast as they could from the university. Both men looked pale and worried. "How is he?" Martinez asked. "Dying," Dr. Thompson said simply. "We need to understand why this venom is so effective against his species." Nick set up his laptop and began searching through biochemical databases. Maybe there is something about their neural structure that makes them vulnerable. Tim Walsh, a biochemistry student, had also come to help. He began analyzing blood samples that Lilathan provided from Kethvar's medical kit. "This is incredible," Tim said, looking at his results. "Their nervous systems are based on silicon compounds, not carbon like ours." "Silicon?" Kate asked. "That explains everything." She pulled up molecular diagrams on her computer. "Look at this. The spider venom specifically targets silicon-based neural networks. It is like the venom was designed to kill Zephyrians." "But that is impossible," Vexion said. He had been quiet until now, running scans on everything in the room. "Earth spiders never encountered our people before today. Evolution does not care about intention," Martinez explained. "The venom evolved to work against silicon-based systems because some Earth creatures use similar biology." Amy felt a chill run down her spine. "Are you saying Earth creatures naturally produce chemicals that kill aliens?" "Not just aliens," Tim said, his voice excited despite the crisis. "I am finding compounds in the venom that would be lethal to any silicon-based life form, and not just spiders. Ants, bees, even some bacteria produce similar chemicals." Dr. Thompson worked frantically to keep Kethvar alive while the scientists made their discoveries. She had contacted poison control centers around the world, but no one had experience with alien physiology. "We need to try something," she said. "He is going into cardiac arrest." Kate suggested using a general neural stabilizer, something used for severe snake bites. It was their only option. As they injected the medicine, Mordek's communication device began flashing urgent signals. He answered it quickly, speaking in rapid Zephyrian. "What is it?" Zaranel asked in English. "The High Command," Mordek said. "They want a full report. They do not believe that a creature so small could threaten our warriors." "Show them this," Vexion said grimly, pointing at Kethvar's unconscious form. Meanwhile, Amy and Nick had been running more tests. They collected samples from the forest and tested them against Zephyrian tissue samples that Lilithon provided. "Professor," Nick called out, "you need to see this." Martinez looked at the test results and went pale. "This cannot be right." "What is it?" Dr. Thompson asked, still working on Kethvar. "Common house spiders," Amy said in a shocked voice. "Garden ants, even ordinary bacteria. They all produce compounds that are toxic to Zephyrian biology." The room went silent except for the beeping of medical machines. "You are saying that most Earth life is poisonous to us?" Lilithon asked quietly. "Not poisonous," Tim corrected. "Lethal. Your people evolved on a world without these kinds of biochemical weapons. You have no resistance to them." Vexion made a sound like escaping air. "No resistance at all?" Kate nodded grimly. "From what I can see, even brief contact with many Earth organisms could kill your people. The spider bite was just the beginning." Dr. Thompson looked up from her patient. "His vital signs are stabilizing. The anti-venom is working." Everyone in the room felt relief, but it was mixed with a new understanding of how dangerous the situation really was. Mordek's communication device chimed again. This time, the message was longer and more urgent. "What are they saying?" Martinez asked. "They want us to return home immediately," Mordek translated. "The military council believes Earth may be too dangerous for any of our people to visit." "Too dangerous?" Amy asked. "We are not trying to hurt anyone." "You do not have to try," Lilithon said sadly. "Your entire planet is a weapon against us. Every plant, every animal, every microbe could be our death." Kethavar's eyes opened slowly. He looked around the room with confusion and fear. When he tried to speak, his voice was weak and shaky. "The spider," he whispered. "So small." "Yes," Amy said gently. "Very small. But on Earth, small things can be the most dangerous of all." Kethavar closed his eyes again. The greatest warrior of the Zephyrian Empire had been defeated by a creature he could barely see, and now they all knew that this was not an accident or bad luck. This was just how Earth worked. 3 days after Kethvar's spider bite, the biology labs at Pacific University buzzed with activity. Scientists worked around the clock to understand what they had discovered. Amy Collins barely slept as she helped coordinate the testing. The results kept getting more frightening. Ben Carter, a lab technician, wheeled in another cart full of specimens. "More samples from the city park," he announced. "Common house spiders, carpenter ants, and some soil bacteria." Professor Martinez looked tired but determined. He had been on the phone with government officials and university administrators all morning. "Test them all," he said. "We need to know exactly what we are dealing with." Amy carefully placed a tiny piece of Kethvar's molted chitin into a test tube with extract from a common house spider. Within seconds, the chitin began to dissolve. "Same result," she reported. "The venom breaks down their natural armor like acid." Tim Walsh looked up from his microscope. "The bacteria samples are even worse. They produce enzymes that would eat through Zephyrian tissue in minutes." Across the room, Lilithon and Zaranel worked with human researchers to test plant samples. Even they looked shocked at what they were finding. "Your roses," Zaranel said in a trembling voice. "The thorns contain compounds that would cause instant paralysis in our people." "And these are decorative flowers," Lilithon added, "not even meant to be weapons." Professor Diane Foster, who taught plant biology, shook her head in amazement. "Earth plants evolved chemical defenses against insects and animals. We never thought about how they would affect alien biology." The door burst open and Vexion rushed in. His usual skeptical manner was gone, replaced by obvious panic. "I have been testing the air," he announced. "Even breathing here is dangerous. For us." "What do you mean?" Martinez asked. Vexion held up his scanning device. "Pollen, dust particles, microscopic spores. They all contain traces of compounds that damage our respiratory systems." Amy felt her stomach drop. "You mean just being on Earth is slowly poisoning you?" "Yes," Vexion said quietly. "Every breath we take shortens our lives." The room fell silent. Everyone stared at the alien student who had just revealed that Earth's very atmosphere was toxic to his people. Meanwhile, in a secure communication room, Mordek spoke with the Zephyrian High Command. The conversation was not going well. "Impossible," came the metallic voice from the speaker. "You claim that primitive Earth creatures defeated Kethvar?" "Not defeated," Mordek corrected. "Nearly killed. A spider smaller than my smallest claw brought down our greatest warrior." "Send proof," the voice demanded. Mordek transmitted video files, medical scans, and test results. The silence that followed lasted several minutes. "Military Commander Thexelar wishes to speak," the voice finally said. A new, deeper voice filled the room. "Student Mordek, you will explain how this is possible." "Commander, Earth evolved differently than our worlds. Their creatures use chemical weapons as naturally as we use claws or strength. What seems harmless to them is deadly to us." "One spider," the commander said slowly. "One tiny spider nearly killed Kethvar." "Yes, Commander. And our tests show that thousands of Earth species could do the same or worse." The communication went quiet for a long time. When the commander spoke again, his voice was different. "How many of Earth's creatures are dangerous to us?" Mordek looked at his notes. "From what we have tested so far, nearly all of them." Back in the lab, Amy received a call from Carol Davis at the Centers for Disease Control. Carol had been studying the alien biology data that Professor Martinez sent her. "Amy, I need you to understand something," Carol said over the phone. "This goes beyond spiders and ants. We found traces of anti-silicon compounds in common tap water." "Tap water?" Amy repeated loud enough for everyone to hear. "Industrial runoff, natural minerals. Even chlorine treatment creates compounds that are toxic to their biology. Earth's water supply is poisoned to them." Professor Martinez sat down heavily in a chair. "They cannot eat our food, breathe our air, or drink our water." "It gets worse," Carol continued. "We tested soil samples from around the world. Every ecosystem on Earth contains organisms that produce anti-silicon biochemicals." Amy understood the implications. "There is nowhere on Earth that is safe for them." "Nowhere," Carol confirmed. "Earth is not just dangerous to them, it is completely hostile to their form of life." In another part of the university, Alex Morgan, a psychology graduate student, was interviewing the alien students about their emotional responses to these discoveries. "How do you feel about learning that Earth is dangerous to your people?" Alex asked Zaranel. "Terrified," Zaranel answered honestly. "We came here thinking we were the advanced species. Now we learn that your smallest creatures can kill us with a touch. Do you blame humans for this?" "No," Zaranel said after thinking. "You did not design your world to hurt us. This is just how life works here. But it makes us realize how little we understood." Sam Brooks and Maya Rivera, two undergraduate students, had been cataloging the test results. Their list of dangerous Earth organisms grew longer every hour. "Mosquitoes, ticks, fleas," Sam read from his notes. "All carry bacteria that would be fatal to Zephyrians." "What about larger animals?" Maya asked. "Dogs and cats carry microbes on their fur that would cause severe illness. Even pet hamsters are dangerous." Amy felt overwhelmed by the scope of the problem. Earth was not just inhospitable to the aliens. It was a death trap designed by billions of years of evolution. Her phone rang again. This time it was a federal agent named Sean Murphy calling from Washington. "Miss Collins, I understand you are coordinating the alien safety research?" "Yes, sir," Amy replied. "We need a full report immediately. The Zephyrian government is considering this a potential act of war." "Act of war?" Amy was confused. "We did not attack them. They see it differently. From their perspective, we invited their students to a planet that is trying to kill them." Amy looked around the lab at all the scientists working to understand the crisis. "We are trying to help them stay safe. I know that. But their military does not understand how a planet can be accidentally dangerous. They think we set a trap." As Amy hung up the phone, she realized that the spider bite was just the beginning. What started as a simple exchange program had become a crisis that could affect relations between Earth and the entire galaxy. Kethvar appeared in the lab doorway, walking slowly but alive. His near-death experience had changed him. The proud warrior now moved carefully, aware that death could come from the smallest touch. "I came to apologize," he said quietly. "I did not listen when you tried to warn me." "You could not have known," Amy replied. "None of us knew how dangerous Earth really is." "Now we do," Kethvar said. "And now we must decide what this means for both our peoples." 6 months had passed since the spider incident that changed everything. Kethvar stood in the new biosafety laboratory at Pacific University, wearing a full environmental suit. The proud warrior who once mocked Earth's creatures now treated every surface with the respect reserved for deadly weapons. "The air filtration system is working perfectly," Amy Collins reported, checking her monitors. "Zero biological contamination in the sealed lab." Kethvar nodded slowly. His near-death experience had transformed him completely. He was no longer the arrogant warrior who had demanded to be bitten by Earth's smallest spider. Now he was a careful student who understood that survival meant respecting what you did not understand. "Thank you, Amy," he said through his suit's communication system. "Your people have made it possible for us to continue our studies safely." Dr. Sean Murphy, the federal liaison, watched the interaction with interest. He had arrived expecting to manage a diplomatic crisis. Instead, he found himself documenting the most important scientific discovery in galactic history. "The Zephyrian High Command has made their decision," Dr. Murphy announced to the assembled group. "They are officially classifying Earth as a Class X biohazard world." Professor Martinez looked up from his research notes. "What does that mean exactly?" "It means no Zephyrian will ever set foot on Earth again without full environmental protection," Dr. Murphy explained. "And it means they are recommending the same classification to all other spacefaring species." Ambassador Rachel Stone, who had been appointed to handle interspecies relations, smiled grimly. "So we go from being seen as primitive to being the most dangerous planet in known space." "Not dangerous to humans," Leelathon corrected through her own environmental suit. "Dangerous to everyone else." The alien students had all chosen to stay and complete their studies, despite the risks. They wore protective suits at all times and lived in specially built isolation chambers. But their research had produced amazing results. Zaranel held up a sealed container with a common garden ant inside. "This single ant produces enough toxins to kill a dozen of my people. Yet human children play around them without fear. Because we evolved together," Amy explained for the 100th time. "Humans developed resistance to Earth's biochemical weapons over millions of years, making you the only species in the galaxy that can survive on a planet-sized biological weapon," Vexion added. His skepticism about human capabilities had been completely reversed. The transformation in alien attitudes was remarkable. Mordek had become an advocate for treating Earth with extreme caution. His reports to the Zephyrian government emphasized that humans were not primitive or weak, but rather the ultimate survivors. "Your people live among creatures that could destroy entire alien armies," Mordek had written in his latest dispatch. "They do this so naturally that they keep some of these deadly organisms as pets." Professor Martinez was organizing the new Department of Interspecies Biological Safety with Alex Morgan as his first graduate assistant. Their job was to study how Earth life affected alien biology and to develop safety protocols for future contact. "We have requests from 12 different alien species to study our research," Alex reported. "They all want to know if Earth is dangerous, to them too." "Probably," Martinez replied. "Earth's biochemical diversity is unlike anything else in the galaxy. We are finding new toxic compounds every day." Carol Davis had flown in from the CDC with the latest findings. Her team had been testing Earth organisms against tissue samples from various alien species that had been provided through diplomatic channels. "The results are consistent," Carol announced to the group. "Earth life produces chemicals that are toxic to virtually all known alien biology. Humans appear to be unique in our resistance." Kethvar listened to these discussions with fascination. The warrior who had once laughed at tiny spiders now understood that humans were perhaps the most remarkable species in the galaxy. "On my world, we measure strength by how much damage you can cause," Kethvar said thoughtfully. But humans measure strength by how much damage you can survive. Amy nodded. Earth taught us to be tough. Every generation that survived became a little more resistant to poisons, diseases, and toxins, making you living weapons, Zaranel observed. Not because you attack, but because you exist in an environment that would kill everything else. The political implications were staggering. The Zephyrian Empire had quietly abandoned all plans for Earth colonization. Other alien governments were doing the same. Earth had gone from being a potential target for conquest to being a quarantined death world. But this also meant that humans were now seen as incredibly valuable allies. Any species that could survive on Earth was obviously capable of surviving anywhere. We are receiving invitations to visit other worlds, Ambassador Stone reported. Species that once ignored us now want to form alliances, because they figure if we can live here, we can live anywhere, Dr. Murphy added. Tim Walsh had been working on a special project with Lilithan. They had developed a way to neutralize some Earth toxins, making limited safe zones possible for alien visitors. We can create small areas where aliens can exist safely, Tim explained. But it requires constant air filtration, sterilized surfaces, and artificial atmosphere. Like visiting a hostile alien world, Vexion said with irony. Except the hostile alien world is the one where humans evolved. Amy walked over to a window that looked out at the university campus. Students walked across the grass, completely unaware that they were living on the most dangerous planet in known space. Birds flew overhead, their feathers carrying enough toxins to kill most alien life forms. Flowers bloomed in gardens, their pollen lethal to visiting species. Do you think we will ever have normal relations with other species? Amy asked. Define normal, Kethvar replied. Your people have shown us that what we thought was normal in the galaxy is actually very limited. Most worlds are safe, comfortable places where life evolved without constant chemical warfare. Earth is different, Lilithan agreed. Earth made its children into warriors just to survive childhood. The final reports were being prepared for submission to the Galactic Council. The conclusions would reshape how every species in the galaxy thought about Earth and humans. Recommendation, Mordek dictated to his recording device. Earth humans should be classified as the galaxy's only known resistance-immune species. They have evolved natural defenses against biological weapons that would devastate all other known life forms. Secondary recommendation, Vexion added. Any species considering contact with Earth should assume that all Earth organisms are potentially lethal until proven otherwise. As the alien students prepared their final presentations, Amy reflected on how much had changed. A simple spider bite had revealed that humans were not the weak, primitive species that the galaxy had assumed. Instead, they were the only beings tough enough to call the universe's most dangerous planet home. Kethavar removed his helmet in the sealed chamber and looked directly at Amy. Your smallest spider taught me the most important lesson of my life, he said. What lesson was that? Amy asked. That survival is not about being the biggest or strongest, Kethavar replied. It is about being the one who is still alive when everything else is dead. The spider that had nearly killed a galactic warrior sat in its container, smaller than a grain of rice, completely unaware that it had changed the course of galactic history.